people of the internet, it is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new release from Californian Grind juggernauts, SCALP. The band's new album, Not Worthy of Human Compassion, will be released on July 25th via Closed Casket Activities. SCALP began in the most organic of ways in 2018 after forming a Halloween band for fun. The internal chemistry led to a new death metal orientated project, as it does.
Always. If it doesn't, then are you even having a night out?
Just like anything worth a shit, it took on a life of its own, leading to the debut LP, Domestic Extremity, recorded by none other than Taylor Young. The band's follow-up, Black Tar, found the band pushing towards uncharted badlands, developing their sound further and toying with the limitations of genre. With Not Worthy of Human Compassion, the band's third LP and latest for the vulnerable Closed Casket Activities, SCALP returned to the catchy, vein-bulging nihilism that marked their debut, Domestic Extremity, adding in the technical found on the follow-up, Black Tar. The result is a flag-flown high and an amalgamation of the maximal elements of heavy music, a full-on siege by way of death metal grind, D-beat and power violence, seen through the blood-soaked and grimy lens of negative hardcore. Musicality aside, a book called The Lucifer Effect cast a long shadow on the record. Written by Philip Zimbardo, the tomb details the infamous Stanford prison experiment, examining the human factors that could make anyone susceptible to the paths into shadow. Nothing is more terrifying than an evil genius, and Not Worthy of Human Compassion is as maniacal as it is learned, calculating and precise as a cut from a scalpel. Featuring 13 brand new tracks clocking in under 20 minutes.
Oh, give me it. Give me it every
day. Tightens around the neck until the knuckles go white. Emblematic of classic tension and release found on blistering classics like Dystopia's Human Garbage, Terrorizer's World Downfall, and Rotten Sound's Exit. While those influences are more than evident, the band is also unafraid to mention the influence of less obvious, yet more widely regarded bands. We took a handful of riffs and made them our own from albums like Slipknot's Iowa or Nirvana's In Utero amidst Devin Fuentes. I think that there are so many influences that manifested in ways that we weren't aware of until going back to analyse what we've done. For instance, Conspiracy has a lead part that uses a wah pedal, so even though the record is by definition probably a hardcore, grindcore LP with plenty of breakdowns, it's clear that we've been influenced by stuff like doom metal and power violence along the way. The album was produced, engineered and mixed by Taylor Young at the Pit Recording Studio, and then mastered by the great Brad Boatwright at Audio Siege.
Oh, we love you, Brad.
We fucking do. You know what I love about a band like this, Duncan?
No fucks given and right to the point, Dave.
That, but also I listened to their back catalogue in less than 30 minutes.
No, guys, I'll do the background on this. It's fine. It's fine. Freaking half an hour later, done.
Yep. Ain't no 60-minute prog epics here, Duncan.
No.
You're lucky if you get 60-second songs from this band.
It's like the research in this band is kind of that way where, like, you're at home and your wife and your kids are like, we're just going to nip down to the shop at the bottom of the hill, and you're like, yeah, it's not a problem at all. And they get to the door and you're like, can I maximise a wanking this time? You're like, there is 10 minutes. Can I get the good lotion out? You know what I mean? The cleaning utensils, find the material required online, and power beat my meat in 10 minutes. Plus clean up and make sure that my penises went limp again, so when they come in the door and hug me, no one is awkward. It is doable, Dave, but pressure.
Recommend it though.
Pressure.
Yeah, I mean,
what was your first point, Dave?
I don't know. I'm totally it's gone. What was I going to say? Yeah, the last album they did, Black Tar, is like an album that just absolutely lives up to its title. Like, it is just the dankest thing. It is like a shower after listening type album. It is utter filth. So like, I wasn't really sure where they were going to go with this one. Not Worthy of Human Compassion. However, This album is not a shower after listening type album. It is someone call an ambulance after listening to this album, because this is violence, Duncan.
Yes.
This will leave you crumpled in a heap. I thought the sound, the kind of production they went for on Black Tar was very fitting of the kind of tone they went for on that album. But I'm kind of glad they've opted for a different production on this one. This is far more kind of blunt force trauma. This one feels like, like you're being slapped for 17 minutes. It just they just don't, like, there's no fucking around with this album. These tracks are very like concise. They're like, there's only 2 tracks go over 2 minutes on this album. That's, out of the 13 on this release. And one of those is the closing track. The rest are just like balls of like fury. This is like being stabbed 12 times, and then on the final blow they just slit your throat and just watch you bleed out on that last track. It is just relentless. Like, and the last track, I'll come back to the last track because it's a little bit different, but the other 12 tracks, interestingly, like for the style, they're not a rerun of the same idea.
Oh no.
You get a lot of that with like grind kind of based albums, but these tracks are constantly kind of flipping the switch, plenty of twists and turns, giving you like moments of like slow kind of ruthless death metal with a heavy groove that just like whip into this like shower of like grinding blast beats, and then into up tempo kind of hardcore punk savagery. And amongst that though, you've got these like huge slabs of like crust laden sludge that are just like there to just absolutely cave your head in. But the shifts they do between those parts, between those styles, it's very like seamlessly done. This album never feels like as one old horse used to say, a bag of riffs, Duncan. This album, the parts don't feel just kind of taped together. They're very thought out, meticulously kind of pieced together to make sure it really flows, and it's varied enough that it never really becomes like, it never comes with like white noise, this album. There's always something that will grab you, like, oh, that's a really cool groove, a really cool riff. They hold on to the grind parts long enough to kind of deliver that intensity, but never too long that it feels like overbearing either. These tracks may only be, a lot of them are just like a minute long, but they pack a lot into that minute, and it's always very satisfying as well. Like, you never feel like you get to the end of a minute song with like, I wish they'd done like a little more of this. It's never like that kind of short change kind of feeling that you get at the end of one of their tracks. Vocally as well, it's like it's as rabid vocally as it is musically. Cole Rogers is the vocalist. He is a scary dude. Like, he is just wow. But he's got a voice that is made for this. Like, he's either been smoking cigarettes since he was a child, or he does like a shot of like turpentine in the morning with his breakfast, because his vocal tone is ridiculous, man.
It's very raw. It sounds painful. It sounds painful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And there's another vocal tone comes in.
The shouty one, the old school hardcore shouty one, which I'll be honest, not that I want to talk about erections again. When it came in, my dick twitched. I was like, oh gee, I'll pine for that. There's an era where like a hardcore backing vocalist just sounded like someone shouting, "Who the fuck are you looking at?" And then like you've seen them on the show, "Who the fuck are you?" That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think shit's about to go off.
I think the guitarist also does vocals as well, so I think it would be his tone. But yeah, it's different from.
Don't piss him off. Do not piss him off.
It kind of reminded me of Brutal Truth.
Brutal Tooth.
That's like a group of dentists starting a grindcore band. Brutal Tooth.
Oh man, if that doesn't exist, make it happen, please, please.
Brutal Truth. They had a similar kind of vibe. They had like the 2 vocals, Kevin Sharp and Dan Lilker. They had like those 2 kind of similar tones. They were different, but they still like kind of complement each other at the same time. Like there's a lot of influences on here that you'll notice. They do pay respect to a lot of the kind of the veterans, like the Rotten Sound and Nasum and Terrorizer and stuff, but There's a lot of kind of new school kind of ideas as well on this. If you like bands like Full of Hell or Nails or even Lifesick to an extent as well, this has that same level of like carnage and just like that visceral attack that those bands have. Weirdly, they mentioned Slipknot in the press release, and I was like, at first I was like, Slipknot, really? But I've listened to this like 4 or 5 times now, and there's actually there's a couple of moments I was like, all right, okay, right, I can see where you're coming from there. There's a riff on drag, drag. I think it's drag, which is track 12, where there's like has that kind of early kind of Slipknot feeling that just in the rhythm of the guitar, and it's like a lot of this album. It's very short lived. They don't tend to linger on anything for too long, but like there was a little bit of it. I was like, okay, right, I can see maybe where you've got that from. And there's a couple other moments on the album that are like that as well, just small little riffs for a second. You'll be like, all right, okay. But it was cool. Like they're very short. But the last track also has some more kind of like simplified moments where the riffs and the drums aren't quite as frantic as they have been. And that track, Bottomless, it probably was one of my favourite tracks on the album. I really enjoyed hearing them kind of pull back a little bit on the kind of just the kind of chaos of it and bringing in some kind of slower, sludgy moments. And they really kind of lean into the weight of it on that last track. They did film it with a false ending, though, not gonna lie. This was, one that I was listening to this album as I was working, and the track ended. It goes silent for a good like 15 seconds, and then out of nowhere the feedback comes wailing in, and they basically hit you with this like kind of super chunky, kind of hardcore punk kind of groove to finish off the album. Didn't expect it, but actually it was pretty cool. I did enjoy that little kind of like feedback in. Production is off the fucking chain on this album. The drums are so tight, man. Oh my god. Yeah. Like that snare had me at hello, Duncan. Like I was just like, my god. The guitars are like really, they've got that kind of HM2 kind of fuzz to them, but there's a kind of level of this kind of visceral, kind of hardcore grit to it as well that they just growl right throughout this album. I think it's probably my favorite production out of the albums they've put out so far. Like it's very enjoyable. If this was like a scene from a movie, it would be the scene in Misery when Kathy Bates puts a block of wood between James Caan's feet and he breaks his ankles. That's what it kind of reminds me of. It's like
she only does it out of love, Dave. Only does it out of love.
She does. It is gnarly. But it's one of those things like you know it's coming, but you still can't quite prepare yourself for it. And that's how I kind of felt listening to this album. Very enjoyable. Not nothing that I haven't heard done before. I mentioned bands like Nails and Full of Hell and stuff like that, but enjoyed it. What about yourself? What do you think?
And just to finish a point there, that you were just mentioning bands that you mentioned before. If you were in an old dentist grindcore band called Brutal Tooth, your debut album would be called Roots Bloody Root Canal.
Oh.
I mean, there you are, you're welcome. Like this is fucking awesome, right? There's a couple of reasons why it's awesome. One, it's old school as fuck, right? So like it like instantly has me like smiling from ear to ear, but it's like authentically old school.
Oh yeah.
Like they wear their influences like fucking armor on a fucking knight's horse. It's like it's just there, right at the forefront. And like they literally had me, and I cannot stress this enough. They had me in right at the beginning with the old school use of samples. I'm just like, why are bands not still doing this?
Yep.
But I love the idea of this is basically talking about the negative effects of Hate Asprey, which is for those that are old or those that have done a bit of reading, is basically where the hippie movement was in America. It's where all the drug taking and all the shagging happened out in public. It's literally it. That's all they did. They took drugs and balled. You mentioned the Stanford experiment, and I instantly went, hello, because I know some me Stanford experiment because I don't sleep, and I've went down that rabbit hole. For context, for those that don't know, the Stanford experiment happened at Stanford University and involved a fairly nowadays controversial psychologist who got 24 college students and made 12 of them prison guards and made 12 of them convicts, and then basically simulated the abduction. And when I say abduction, I mean full on the 24 people that were in there split into their parts. The 12 arresting officers essentially showed up in the middle of night, blindfolded, and arrested the who would be the convicts, and then like stripped them, like cavity searched them and all the rest, and then incarcerated them in what was supposed to be a 2-week experiment to simulate the psychological effects of imprisonment and authoritative regimes, right? The experiment lasted, I believe it was like 5 days, and they had to cancel it because the people that were playing the guards became violent and abusive, and the actual convicts themselves became emotionally distressed, like basically broke their brain, and that went off the rails real fucking quick. Like wasn't even a week, and it's still seen as this a very controversial look at like human psychology, and the kind of effects that come out of one, incarceration without cause, and two, abuse of power. So the idea that someone would take that kind of high level emotional kind of psychological concept of abuse and then make it a grind death metal album is fucking genius. Like, it's absolute genius, because this album is a full-on assault to the senses. You know, I never really gives up in the best possible way. The moment I knew hardcore loved this album, and hardcore can be used any way you want to use it, but I mean, just in the terms of the way that I actually fucking love this album, was track 5, and this was my first listen, and I was already doing this face, just what the fuck, or that Shackle Rot, which is a fucking great name for a song, right? And it is all of 2 minutes, right? And it hammers with that fucking like machine gun fucking snare sound. We're just going off, and you get about halfway through it, and then this ugly riff comes in. It is fucking huge and ugly. It's ugly, right? And it comes in and it just stomps violently on your throat till it finishes. And I was like, just give me more of that. And the album does not leave you wanting. It's so well put together. It's so fucking vulgar. It's just an angry, pissed off, snarly album. I love the death metal elements here, that kind of old school 90s death metal peppered in with the grind is fucking awesome. The grind isn't, like you mentioned before, it's not repetitive kind of eye-rolling grind, which I know some people love that shit. To me, grindcore albums are either really interesting because they're diverse, or they're one-dimensional and I check out early. Their use of it is really, really, really smart. They don't ever lean too much into it, out with that chaos angle which they bring throughout their songs. Vocally, it's scorched earth. I mean, this fucking, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. And that backing vocal, I know I said it earlier, I can't stress that enough. It's like old school, angry, shouty, hardcore backing vocal that just made me smile. It's brutal, it's vulgar, it's straight to the point. There are no airs, graces, or any frills on this one. There's no fat to chop out. It is like lean as fuck. It gets in and gets the point done in a measly 20 minutes. You run the gambit of human death and emotion. And then the production is like perfect. It's one of those ones where you're like, that it couldn't have been produced any other way. So keep working with that team because they're bringing the best out. This is awesome.
Okay. Scores for this new album. Well, what was I say about Scalp? I mean, like, I wouldn't say like anything they're doing here is like groundbreaking. You know, it's stuff that you've heard before. They're mashing that kind of old school sound with some new school ideas, but on like an enjoyment level, I need to still score this pretty high because I fucking loved every minute of it. I'm gonna go 4.5 in this. I thought it was really fucking good, like, and really well done. I highly recommend this if you like that like extreme sound. What about yourself? What are you thinking?
Goddamn twinning and winning, Dave. 4.5 from me as well. This is brilliant.
Bitch. Nice. Scalp. Not Worthy of Human Compassion, out on July 25th on Closed Casket Activities. Check out the links, check out the single, check out the pre-order, have a listen, see what you think. Happy to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. That is the review. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.